In June of 2021, the CDC released a morbidity and mortality report finding that weekly emergency room visits for suspected suicides attempts among girls aged 12 to 17 increased by 50.6%. This was all by March of 2021 compared to 2019. Our daughters are being pressured to undergo permanent changes under the guise of transgender ideology and social pressures of masking. They are isolated, suffering from depression, anxiety, and not to mention the normal biological changes that come with puberty. Over the next 3 episodes, we'll speak to parents who are personally in this battle, who are fighting to save the next generation of mothers, wives, and leaders. I pray you open your mind and your heart to see what these families are going through. Let's listen, learn the signs and signals that our daughters are sending when they are in need. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Quisha King Show. I am your host, Quisha King, and we will be talking about faith, family, and culture. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Kyra Davis, and I will let her introduce herself. Kyra Davis, everyone.
Hello. Thank you, Quisha. It is such an honor to be here with you today. My name is Kyra Davis. I am editor-at-large for redstate.com. I'm also the host of Just Listen to Yourself with Kyra Davis, which is a podcast that is available wherever you find your podcast. I'm a political pundit. I'm an activist, and I'm also a parent. And that's who I am in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah. I have been following your work for quite some time. You are certainly an inspiration to women all over everything that you've been doing over the years. You tweeted back on January 13th, you said, "My beautiful, vibrant, sweet 14-year-old daughter told me she hopes masks never go away at school because she likes that no one can see her face. I felt like someone stabbed me in the heart. I don't know how much longer I can do this. We are killing the mental health of our kids." I saw your tweet and immediately could relate because my own daughter had mentioned, things that were going on at school with her friends and things like that. And she actually saw your tweet because she's been helping me with, she's kind of like my new little personal assistant. I'm giving her a job, putting these kids to work.
Nice.
And she was like, "Mom, I felt ugly if I didn't have my mask on. I felt like I wasn't pretty." And I was like, "What?" And she told me about this new phenomenon, this new trend of calling kids mask fish. Have you heard of that?
No.
Yeah. So, like the catfish thing, like if somebody's catfishing you,
Mm-hmm.
it's that, but for mask. So boys, I guess, are giving girls a hard time, or maybe even other girls too, if they're saying basically like, "Oh, well, this part might look good, but the rest of you might not look good. So you might be a mask fish."
I see.
Yeah. And I'm just like, when you tweeted that, I know there are some people talking about this, certainly. But I think more people need to be talking about what our girls are going through right now. So can you just, share with us a little bit more, as much as you feel comfortable, about what your daughter is experiencing and how you're responding as a mom? Help us out, Kyra.
I need help. No, I was devastated to hear her say that because you're a mom of girls, so you already know, like,
2 daughters.
Girls already have, teenage years, puberty. It's such a tough
It's the devil.
time. It really is. And for young women especially, because young men, it takes them a little longer to hit like maturity, right?
Right.
Emotional, all that. They can be boys into their adulthood, if they just choose to act a certain way, or, sometimes we use this phrase a lot, like, "Oh, when's he going to grow up?" We can do that for boys, but for girls, the change from girlhood to womanhood is almost immediate, and it comes physically.
Yeah.
And it really pushes you into, it really is a an ending of your childhood. It really is. And it comes very early for women. And so it's a lot to deal with as a young girl, and what's going on with your body, and how, and then there's boys in the mix, and then there's hormones in the mix. And you're not as free to do all the things that you once did because your body is changing. It's just a stressful time anyway. And we hear this kind of stuff from young girls anyway. But the healthy thing to do is to push through the feelings of inadequacy, or like my daughter hates going to youth group, right? Because she feels like, she's nervous. She doesn't look like the other kids. She worries about like how she looks, her body, her weight, like all of that.
Yeah.
But
Wait, let me ask you. So really quick, is your daughter, is she like, because I find my daughter is like really almost, she's always in the mirror. She's so concerned about like her body. Is your daughter doing that too? When you say she's concerned about this, is it like almost obsessive?
I wouldn't say my daughter is obsessed with it.
Okay.
But we live in a very hoity-toity area, and there's a certain body type, and that young Black women don't always fit.
Right.
And so she's dealing with that. That's what she's dealing with when she's looking in the mirror. But our solution is you have to push through it. So yes, you have to go to youth group. You have to figure out how to conquer your insecurities and how to put your best foot forward, how to make a good impression, how to push through those uncomfortable times, because that's where you find lasting relationships. That's how you find people who will accept you the way you are. And you learn how to tell the difference between people who are judgmental and who will accept you the way you are. So in a normal world, that's what we would be doing. But these masks give our girls this excuse to really like dig into that mindset that they're not enough, or that they don't look right, or it's amplifying all the insecurities of adolescence, and it's heartbreaking. And I feel like it prevents me as a parent from doing my job. To like, I can't tell her take off that damn mask and be who you are. I can't tell her that at school, and we're in California and we still have mask mandates in school. So yeah, it's heartbreaking because she is so vibrant, and in a lot of ways she still is, but I can see like how the last 2 years have like chipped away at her confidence and her personality.
Oh gosh, that just breaks my heart to hear that. Even with my own daughter, like I hate to hear, even though it was over. So I pulled my daughter out of public school about 3 weeks ago, and we're in Florida. So the mask mandates had ended, but to hear her talk about that, and you know what too? Like I was like, oh my God, I didn't know she felt like that. So that was a whole other thing. I was like, I didn't even know you felt like this. Like I felt like, God, you know the thing, you feel like you're being like a bad mom. You feel like, where was I? How come I didn't see the signs? And I didn't know that she was dealing with that. And so it is so heartbreaking because, like you said, girls, it's like, you gotta go through like the metamorphosis of becoming like, you're like, your body is just like, what? Huh? What? Like nobody. It doesn't even end there, because I find myself as I get older, I have allergy issues now. I have,
I know, like I told my husband the other day, I'm like, oh no, I'm becoming this person that has to buy the expensive laundry detergent because my skin is too sensitive for the off-brand
changes. It's just like never ends of just this constant metamorphosis that you have to go through as a woman. I feel like it's only us. I really do. But it's true though. It's like, God, men are like, oh yeah, like it's Wednesday. What's wrong?
Yeah, I'll just age gracefully. But women, it's because we do bear so much. We bear children. We bear the burden of being nurturers. We're homemakers. Our bodies are built to carry life and nurture life.
Right.
But the downside of that in a broken world is that our bodies take the heavier toll.
Right.
And so that toll shows. And we, even if we don't have kids, our bodies are still biologically primed to treat our bodies like we have kids, or so you gain weight, you hold weight. All these things are good for childbirth,
Right. So, I remember like around 36, I started to get the urge to like have a baby again. And I was like, what
Sure.
in the world is it? My mom was like, oh yes, this your body is telling you that you
Yeah.
only you got
Yeah.
a little bit more time left before this factory is shut down. And
I'm
so
47 and I only recently came to the conclusion like, all right, this is like a couple years ago, I was telling my husband we can get one more in. We can get one more late baby in. And he was like, finally, he was like, you know what, you need to accept that you are done. We're done with babies, but it's just your home hormones like raging against the dying of the light, you know?
Right. It's like, girl, them eggs is getting
Right. Come
scrambled.
on.
Yeah. But it's funny that you mentioned, like the social the nurturing aspect that women naturally have. And as you're going into puberty, girls are getting that too. And I was just reading articles about what we were going to be talking about and the social anxiety that girls have because there is this need with the mask in particular. There's this need to want to, I don't want to get other people sick. And, of course, like everything that's happening in the news and everything that, the fear. So girls naturally have a want to nurture their other friends. And, we grow up in like groups and like more of that community. Like we want to make sure everybody else is taken care of. And we will many times like neglect ourselves, caring about our friends and caring about everybody else just because of naturally like how we're wired. But this social anxiety that's happening with girls, let's just say, a young girl is having trouble wearing the mask. Like maybe there's some medical issue, or maybe like, some of our daughters, the social, the anxiety piece of it, or the insecurity piece, but they won't even take it off because it's like, well, socially, I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to look a certain way if I don't take care of the herd, if I'm not like doing what everybody else is doing. And so girls naturally have like this want to, fit in more and just, make sure we look a certain way, just like everything that you were talking about. And that anxiety though is causing our girls to have mental health issues. There has been a spike in mental health issues with girls over, the last 2 years. I know COVID has been like 2 years. It's hard to believe, but it's been 2 years. But there's been a spike and a sharp increase in the mental health issues, anxiety, emergency room visits with girls. The CDC was reporting, they're not saying that they are actually committing suicide. Thank God. I hope that's true. I am very skeptical of the CDC these days, but that's what they say, that they're not committing suicide. But the social anxiety that and the mental health that our girls are going through, and you and I are seeing a little piece of that with our own children. It's staggering.
You make such a good point that we are nurturers. And so this whole like protect the herd really kicks in our nurturing instincts. And I've been saying, I didn't make that particular connection. And I think it's excellent because I've been saying from the start, like, we should not be making children responsible for the health of adults. That's too heavy of a burden for them.
Yes.
Children are not at risk, and yet we're masking them. Listen, Quisha, if you live in LA, if you go to a Los Angeles public school, we're having the Super Bowl next month, where the NFL has told Los Angeles, look, we're not abiding by your rules. We go to Texas, or you let us scrap the mask mandates. LA wasn't going to let them serve food or alcohol. No, we're serving food. We're serving alcohol. We're coming. Everything's going to be normal inside that stadium, or we leave. And LA was like, okay. So while that's going on during the Super Bowl, 5-year-old children, 4-year-old children in Los Angeles have to get a swab stuck up their nose twice a week before they can enter the school building. And they have to wear KN95 masks 8 hours a day, including outside.
Jesus, that is out.
And they are not at risk. They are not at risk. So what are we telling them? We keep telling them, yes, but you take this, you could take something home to grandma or grandpa or mom or dad, and you could kill them. We're making them little wannabe murderers. You know what I mean? And so how does a kid internalize that? We went to visit my in-laws for for Christmas. They live in Arizona. It's a
Mhm.
6-hour drive.
Yeah.
And we have other family members that they live close to who are immunocompromised. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
we're always like considering that when we go. But
Of course.
our whole side of the family has this whole time has been like, well, no, we're not staying away from each other. That's ridiculous. Like,
Right,
we
right.
don't know if we have tomorrow. Like, we've never stopped getting together and
Mhm.
loving on each other. But
Good.
we went for Christmas. We knew Omicron was raging.
Mhm.
And when we came back, my sister-in-law texted to say she had tested positive for COVID.
Mhm.
And so she just wanted to let us know. And we ended up all having it.
Okay.
And like my in-laws were fine. And my immunocompromised relative actually got it too, but she's fine.
Okay,
And
good. I'm glad to
anyways,
hear that.
yeah, my whole point is this. When we got back and my daughter found out that they had tested positive, she said, is it my fault? Because she's not vaccinated, right? We're all vaccinated. She's not
Mhm.
vaccinated. I'm not getting her vaccinated.
Yeah, I
And
don't blame you.
no, I'm not doing it. And so immediately she was like, I must have brought them this
Oh,
virus.
God.
And it was not based in logic at all. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm like, think about everything that the COVID bosses have been telling us. Like in
Right.
Arizona, they don't have a mask mandate. They
Mhm.
don't have vaccine passports. All
Yeah.
the stuff that we have in California, they
Right.
don't. So you've been masking at school all day. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be the safe one. How
Right.
did you take it to them? Why
Right.
wouldn't you think that it was them that gave it to us? Which it was. It was them that gave it to us.
Right.
But she blamed herself for it.
Oh my
This
God.
is what we're doing. She's carrying around this burden. Like if she makes one little mistake, if she takes off this mask in the grocery store, that she's going to
Mm.
actually kill somebody. It's
Jesus.
irresponsible.
That is so sad. I mean, even in Florida, there were teachers who were saying, I think this was in, but I could be wrong, but I know that I heard stories around the United States where teachers were saying to kids, like, you're going to be responsible for killing my husband, or you're to kids.
Oh my
To
gosh.
adults saying this to children. So yes, you're right. Imagine, we don't even know, just like how
Yeah.
we missed this, we missed our children going through this because they probably don't even know how to verbalize some of this stuff that they're
Right.
feeling, and it just kind of comes out in certain different circumstances or instances. But imagine what that would do to a child. And I think this was like a elementary kid. You're going to be responsible for killing my husband? Well, girl, take your behind home then. Don't come to school.
Thank you. I wrote a whole op-ed about this, Keisha. I wrote this whole thing and this was last year even when teachers were like arguing about going back to school. And I'm like, it's been a year. If you don't feel safe, quit. You're not entitled to this job.
Okay.
Quit. If this job can't give you the safety that you think you're entitled to, that you deserve, do what all the rest of us have been doing and adjust.
Right. Adjust. Exactly. I am so sick and tired of these crazy teachers, these crazy, even the teachers unions, the school board associations, all of them. I am sick of them trying to put this burden on children. This is absolutely ridiculous. And all the other countries seem to have figured it out that the schools are not super spreader events. Children are not like massively spreading COVID to children. This is insane.
We should be thanking our lucky stars that this pandemic spared our children. It should have been the first thing that we talked about. We should have been like, thank God that this has spared our children. And this is something that only strikes the vulnerable and the elderly. Like, that's something that we can cope with, we can deal with. But COVID has largely spared our children, and yet we have punished them the most through this. And I am sick and tired of, I think, mostly childless people on Twitter and in social media telling me as a mother that I don't know what I'm seeing when I look at my daughter. I know what I'm seeing. I literally carried this person inside my body for the better part of 10 months. You don't get much more intimate than that. I know what I'm looking at when I look at my child. And I'm telling you that what I'm seeing is detrimental. It's hurting her. And you're the only person who can release her from this. And yet you, imaginary school board member or teacher or whoever, is looking at me going, oh, you're just being over dramatic.
Right. It is so crazy. And, oftentimes, if you don't go along with the stream narrative, you're considered hyperbolic, right? You're the one that's, doing the most and all of this. And it's like, you're literally telling me that the child that I birthed, that I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on with them. And to me, that sounds so extreme. And that sounds so, even, with CNN and their freaking death clock ticker,
I know.
it was like, y'all are so extreme, but yet if
Yeah.
we say, you know what, we want to take a more measured approach to this, we want to be a little bit more reasonable, we're the ones deemed that's like, just insane. And it's like you feel like you're living in like the upside down world. It is like, do your kids watch Stranger Things? Do they like
Oh
Stranger
my
Things?
gosh.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Well, mine are,
We're
I have a
upset.
confession. I love me some Stranger Things too. But that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm in the upside down world. It feels
Yeah.
like what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. And it's like, can we get some sanity, please? We're supposed to be, the United States of America. We're supposed to be, leading the charge and, a lot, innovation and lots of things
Mhm.
like that. But all these other countries have figured out that children aren't super spreaders, that classrooms aren't super spreading events, that the UK just announced that they're done with their mask
Right.
mandates and
They're
their
done with everything.
vaccine passports, and they're like, you know what, we're done. America's like, what do you think about that? Do you think we're kind of easing up? I think I haven't read the new reports and stuff of what Lord Fauci is telling us these
I
days.
know.
But
Emperor Fauci.
Emperor Fauci. But
It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I think, because I look around and I think finally now my silly self predicted that Americans were going to be here by Easter of 2020.
okay.
But I think we're here now where most Americans have given it up. Like they
Oh, yeah.
don't care. Like if most you might go to some city centers, or some hoity-toity areas where people want to be like people have taken the mask as a symbol more than a medical
Yeah.
necessity, right?
Right.
You have those places. You're always going to have the true believers, but when I travel a lot, I've been traveling this whole time. I've
Me
never
too.
stopped traveling. I've been state after state. I go most places, and even where people are obeying mandates, they're not fans of them. They're not going home and locking themselves in their home and not seeing
Right.
anyone. They might have a mask on in the store, but they're going to a birthday party,
Right.
where there's no masks. And
Yeah.
people are realizing that life is going on, but the government in a lot of ways hasn't caught up and can't, because in blue states like mine and in the case of the federal government, they've committed to the zero COVID narrative and they're stuck there. And so the only way to like get out from under the commitments they made that they can't possibly fulfill is to blame you and me for just not doing enough.
Right. It's so I never understood that in the first place. Like, first of all, when they were like, we're gonna quarantine healthy people, I was like, now
Yeah.
I don't have a medical degree. I don't work in any type of medical profession, but somehow quarantining healthy people just did not seem too logical to me. I
You
never
couldn't say that
understood
out loud.
why we
No.
took that approach. I was like, okay, that seems really stupid. I mean, no shade, but that seems just like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And then you saw all of these other medical professionals just jump right on board. It's like, well, that's what the FDA and the CDC guidelines say. I'm like, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, where is your medical curiosity? Like, where isn't your scientific brain supposed to like turn on? And aren't you supposed to be taking the charge to like figure this out? And it was like they just went so lock in step with whatever was coming down from the masters, and it was like, this is really weird. And I think it revealed how, and I'm gonna kind of put on my tinfoil hat for a second, but I think it revealed how easily people can get like into a cult, like
Yes.
into a cult like
Yep.
mentality of just blindly following just
Yeah.
whatever the masses are doing. And I think a lot of people are just blindly going along with, or have been blindly going along with all of this, and it's really making me like the thought of the individual, the thought of like just freedom and all of these things that America's supposed to stand for, how we just went right along the, masses of people went right along, along with it, was really kind of worrisome. And now we're dumping that all onto our kids. That is like really frightening to me.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that one thing I've learned over the last 2 years is that most people aren't independent minded. I've realized that, right? Most people are followers and not leaders.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that is an American problem. I think that is a humanity problem.
You're right.
And I always, on my podcast, I always say, like, I'm going to take it to church. So I'm going to take it to church here for a second.
You can take it to church all day here.
All right. So the thing is that we are, even from the ancient biblical days, you see the Israelites in defiance of God wandering around in the desert for 40 years because that was groupthink. They were all led by groupthink, right? It was like, well, we want you to get us out of Egypt because we're slaves, but I don't know, maybe it's better to be slaves because at least we get 3 squares a day.
Hello.
That's groupthink. Or Moses goes up to the mountaintop for a while. He's not there to be judging people and dispensing rules for a while. And all of a sudden everybody's like, hey, let's put up this golden calf. Like, why not? Let's do it. But, we are.
Let's party.
We are primed for groupthink. And that is why individual thinking, it's what I find attractive about Christianity. It requires an individual choice and an individual relationship. It's why it's so distasteful to a lot of people. And that's how freedom is. It requires individual engagement and individual thinking. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable with individual thinking because they don't feel comfortable with themselves and their place in this world. So yes, we are primed to be a mob. Now, that being said, that means people like you and me have to be bolder. We have to give people something to follow. Well, we're not going to change every single American into a leader all of a sudden, and we probably wouldn't even want that. But
no, we don't.
But I actually just finished up writing a book that should be published this summer sometime about this very issue, about conservatives. It's time to stop being afraid of being disliked or talked about poorly, and understand that that's going to happen anyway. And you're going to have to stand up and draw your line in the sand.
That's right.
And that means you're going to have to withstand the slings and arrows that come with that. But whatever your line is, for people like me and Quisha, it's our kids. For you, it might be your business. It might be the trans athlete on your daughter's college team. Whatever.
Or high school.
Yes. Whatever the line is, find it, identify it, stand there, and don't move. It is time for us to stand up and be loud leaders. Conservatives find that distasteful because we're not that type of people, typically speaking, outside the punditry class.
Right.
But you know what? This is what has happened while we've all been just going about our business.
Hello, somebody. Hello, caller.
You gotta come in and clean it up. It's time to get ugly.
You know what is so funny too? A lot of people used to say, I used to hear this a lot, well, Christians leave their brain at the doors. You have to check your brain at the door to be a Christian. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. All this science in the Bible, all of this, heavy, heavy documented research in the Bible. And then you see the same people are just blindly following along, all of these other things in society. It's a religion. You are right. It is a religion. And I find that so fascinating that for so long, the Christian believers have been told like, oh, well, you guys are so stupid. You got to just check your brain at the door. And it's like, I'm sorry, sir. Excuse me. You're following a doctor who hasn't seen a patient in over 30 years. I don't even know if he ever saw a patient, but it's like, I got into some heated debates with my friends who are doctors, and I'm like, you're not thinking, like, you're not. And they're like, well, that's what the CDC. I wanted to like smack them. I'm like, wake up. And they this particular one is an atheist, and that's fine, whatever, but we always go back and forth about Christianity and atheism. But it was like, even when it came to like the science, and I'm like, when I say the science, I'm not talking about like real science. I mean this new kind of like
capital S capital
Right.
IENCE.
Exactly. Like
Science.
that is a whole that's the religion part.
Yes.
That is a religion part. And it is so you're right. You're so right. It is so it is high time that we as conservatives open our mouths and stop being afraid to, of what the left is going to say. Who freaking cares? You think that if you say something, you could step out here and cure COVID, like literally provide a real cure for
Yeah.
COVID. If
Mhm.
you're a conservative, they will drag your behind. They would
Yeah.
drag you. So it really doesn't matter what you say. They're going to talk about you anyway. My mom used to say, if you do good, the bad people are going to talk about you. And if you do bad, the good people are going to talk about you. So you might as well go ahead and do what you got to do because you're going to get talked about anyway.
And I don't mean to make light. I understand that for people like you and me who sort of thrive in the public eye, that's
Mhm.
a skill, that's a personality trait. And I
Yeah,
understand that not everyone has that. For some people, the idea of like standing up at a school board meeting and speaking is terrifying. And
true.
so I don't want to like shame anybody for not taking this, like, you don't have to have a show, you don't have to have a
Right,
podcast, you don't have to go out and scream, but maybe you do show up at that meeting and just be one of the numbers that is supporting, the strength of numbers.
yeah,
Or maybe you do speak to your boss about this thing at work that you didn't like, that you didn't appreciate, that you're not allowed to go in there with your MAGA hat. So why is this person allowed to run around screaming about politics all day?
right.
Be that person. I know that there are a lot of parents out there, like, this trans issue is huge for our kids right now. It's so huge.
Girl,
This is so, it's such a spiritual level battle. It's so huge, but we need, I particularly think, especially men, to be standing up and showing up at these sports events or showing up to the coach's office and saying, no, this boy's not going to be on my daughter. It shouldn't be the moms doing it. It should be the dads. These boys are not going to show up on my daughter's soccer team. And a
right.
lot of you parents out there will proudly say, oh, I would do anything for my kid. I would die
Mhm.
for my kid. But would you lose your job for your kid?
Hello.
Would
Hello,
you risk
caller.
your reputation for your kid?
Mm,
Would you risk being thought of poorly for your kid?
yeah.
Like, it's easy. The easiest thing in the world, I think, for a parent is to say, I would die for my kid. That's a
Oh, yeah.
no-brainer.
Uh-huh.
But there's other things. Well, now I'm looking at losing my income, or well, ask yourself what you're willing to give up.
Yep.
But,
I said,
I've had to give up in some cases, the respect of my kids over the last couple of years,
mm,
to hold firm to what I know to be right for them, and to
absolutely.
push back for what I know to be right for them. And yeah, they think I'm ridiculous and this like cranky old woman, cranky old
Yep.
mom, but I've had to like just withstand it. I know what I'm doing and saying is right.
That's right. My great grandparents, I had the honor and privilege to know them, and my great grandmother used to say, "You'll understand it better by and by. You might not get it right now, but you'll understand it better by and by. Just keep on living a little bit longer, and don't worry, you will get it." My oldest daughter, she was fighting me, Kyra. She did not want to come out of public school.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, she just thought it was just going to be horrible. So she's in a homeschool co-op. And I was like, you're going to like it. I promise you're going to like it. But she couldn't see it, which I understood, but it didn't matter because you're going to go to this homeschool co-op because I couldn't do not one more day. I couldn't take not one
Yeah,
more time. And that's
I
in
know.
Florida. People are like, oh, it's right.
Yeah.
It's, trust me, there are still crazy people
Public
here.
school is public school. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so a couple of about a week and a half ago, she texted me. She goes, "Low key, mom, my love for learning is coming back." Now that
Oh
she's,
my
yeah,
God.
girl, I could have cried. I could have cried. But you're right. We know what is best for our kids. And this goes back to exactly what we were talking about from the beginning. We know what is best for our kids. We birth these children. We watch them every day. They are, not saying that we can't be better, with catching things, picking up
Sure.
cues and stuff when they're going through different things. But we know our kids, and I refuse to let some stranger, from some bureaucrat office, some department of education, or wherever you come from, you have
Mhm.
no idea about who my child is, and how dare you try to tell me that I should do something that I know is not in the best interest of my own child. It is disrespectful and insulting.
Let me take it here too. And as Black mothers, I am tired of being disrespected for, I'm already dealing with a whole set of circumstances in which my kids are growing up in this world where the race conversation has become really weird. And there's all these stressors, and they, on the one hand, they're like the oppressed, but on the other hand, their race makes them way too powerful. And I'm like having to meld all of these competing ideas. And then on top of it, we come from this history where if you get a little angry, you're an angry Black woman. You're just an angry Black mom. And so we're all, I feel I'm always dealing with this dichotomy, but I live in a largely white and Asian area. And I mean, I can remember one day this lady got mad at me because I honked at her at the red light, like the light turned green, and we sat there for a bit, and I just like lightly honked, and it turns out we were both going to school for pickups. And so when we got to the curb, this white lady gets out and like out of her car and comes over to me, and she's like, you should be a little more polite about, yada, yada, yada. And actually you didn't know, but it was my daughter driving the car. She's learning to drive. I said, okay. I was just giving her a little honk, like lights green, go.
Right.
And she said, well, what you did was rude. And I was like, look, I understand, but the light was green. It was just one little honk. Like, it's really not a big deal. It's not that serious. Like, you just go on with your day. I'll go on with my day. And she goes, oh, you're one of those. And I was like, see, this is what happens. I'm trying to be nice to you. I'm trying to be polite to you. But even the fact that I got a little uppity with her made me one of those people. So that is the thing we deal with also. Having to be seen as an angry Black woman. But I'm just an angry mom.
Right. Right. I'll be that. Whatever. I'll be the angry Black mother. I will be the angry mom. I really don't care, especially when it comes to my kids. You can call me whatever name in the book that you want to call me. But I know one thing you're going to do is respect me as a mother. And you're not going to have your hands so deep into my child that they get hooked up into your system where they can't even think for themselves. So you can call me whatever you want to call me. That's fine. That idea, and it's a lot of that going on. You got that piece, and then you have the other piece. Like I was at a restaurant yesterday, and it took a minute for the waitress to come over, and so I was like, I had to grab someone. I was like, can I get some service or whatever? And she was like, oh yeah, da da da. So she brings me my drink, and then I guess the person who was supposed to have that table comes. She comes over and she's like super apologetic. Now this is a white girl, white lady. She's like super apologetic, and I'm like, okay, girl, you're throwing it on a little bit too thick. She's like, oh my gosh, I just want you to know that I'm a really good waitress, and I didn't mean. I'm like, it's all good, you're good. And like throughout the rest of my dining experience, she was just super. I'm like, now you're making me think.
Now you're making me. Now I'm feeling extra self-conscious.
Right. I'm like, it's okay. She's like,
I already
know that. I thought that was another. I thought she was going to sit you at another table, and I'm like, ma'am.
Okay, like got it. I always feel I always feel self-conscious anyway sitting down at a table because my husband was a server. Like he worked his way through college as a server. And everybody knows like Black people don't tip. So I'm always like feeling like I have to prove myself.
Right.
I'm going to tip you.
Right. We're like, you see this tip, right?
Yeah.
That's 18%. That is true. I was a waitress. I lived in New York for a little bit, and I was a waitress. I used to sing professionally, but I was waitressing and singing. And so that was the norm there too, because everybody knew Black people don't tip good.
And on a Sunday too. Ooh, the Sunday Black folks is the worst. Y'all are the worst.
It's true. People say that, I saw Jeffrey Charles, I guess I should say.
Oh, Jeffrey.
There is a gentleman on Twitter. His name is Jeffrey Charles, and he got into it back and forth with, I forget the guy, but about Black culture. And there are many positive things about Black culture, and there are some negative things about Black culture too. Let's just keep it all a stack. But there is a Black culture, and that was the argument about, was there a Black culture and was there not. But that's one of the things in Black culture that we probably need to do better at, is tipping.
Did you call a tabletop of Black customers Canadians? That would be my husband. My husband's restaurant. That was code. we got a table of Canadians, and then they know if my husband is Black, they'd be like, "Well, you wait on him, Mark." And Mark would be like, "I'm not waiting on them. They're not going to tip."
Right, exactly. It might be even worse for the Black guy.
So
they're like, "Oh, okay, he's Black. He's not going to care."
Right. And it's too funny. We're doing this is inside baseball for some of y'all, but
I know, right?
Funny. Oh, it's the truth. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
Everybody has their thing. We make fun of women drivers, and hey, this is, some cliches are true. Sorry, trying to change it. And I've probably over tipped way too much of my life because I'm like overcompensating for that quality.
Okay. I put a post yesterday. You know how, I don't know if they're doing this in California, but they're doing it here, where they're swiping you at the table and you sign like at the table. Have you seen that?
Yes.
So they have this like little device, and
yeah.
So now I feel even more
right.
I'm like, oh, they're right there. Let me like
20
right
25%.
I know. I'm like, so I was like, does anybody else feel a little obligated to tip more, that they're standing like right over? They're like Big Brother watching you tip.
Clever. Because I will like tip out of guilt. I for sure 100% am the person.
Me too. Me out of guilt. I do. It's that, for me, it's definitely that waitressing. You always have a special place in your heart for servers, because it is a tough job. It is a thankless job. It is a really tough job.
Yeah,
but,
my husband.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This was such a great conversation. I love all the different topics that we touched on. I knew I was going to really enjoy talking to you, and I hope to talk to you again. So aside from the book, can you tell us what else you have going on and where people can find you online?
Sure. The book's going to be out this June, so maybe I'll come back to talk about it when it gets published. But you can look for that over the summer. It's called Drawing Lines. And in the meantime, you can find me over at Red State. I publish every week over there. And then follow me on Twitter at Real Kyra Davis, Kyra. And look at my podcast, Just Listen to Yourself with Kyra Davis. I have two that you might enjoy. That one, which is a podcast just dedicated to thinking through ideas and critical thinking. And my Hallmark podcast, A Very Merry podcast that I do with my Hallmark BFF, Amelia Hamilton, and we just review Hallmark Christmas movies all year long. So,
no way! I did not know you did that.
Yeah, so we pick a movie each week. We break it down. It's a lot of fun, even if you don't watch Hallmark movies. So find that wherever you find your podcast as well. And it was a pleasure, Quisha, to sit down with you and talk to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Florida at CPAC.
Yes. I will be there. I look forward to seeing you there as well. Thank you so much. I hope everyone got something really good out of this conversation. I know I certainly did. So thank you, Kyra, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.